Breaking news tonight, Congressman Eric Swalwell resigning from the House amid a wave of allegations of sexual misconduct and sexual assault. The announcement late today that he'll leave Congress as multiple women come forward amid growing pressure from within his own party to step down. What we know about the criminal investigation now underway. The president versus the Pope. The war of words between the two leaders and the controversy erupting over this AI image shared by President Trump, depicting him as a Christ-like figure. The president's surprising explanation for the image and what Pope Leo told NBC News about the feud. Showdown at sea, the partial U.S. blockade now in place, what we're learning about who is allowed to pass through, and our new reporting on whether peace talks are back on with Iran. Tech CEO targeted. New images tonight, a suspect attacking OpenAI Sam Altman's home. And office, what we just learned about the suspect. The husband arrested after his wife went missing in the Bahamas, set to walk free unless police file charges tonight. Plus the text messages his wife sent before she vanished. A street turned into a runway, why this small plane made a sudden emergency landing in the middle of Phoenix. Terrifying doorbell cam video, a man seen screaming and demanding entry to a house, how the scene ended in a violent struggle with the homeowner. Cruise ship death, the 16-year-old now charged in the death of his stepsister on a Carnival cruise ship. Plus, why this giant jet was flying so low over this small town, the investigation tonight. And there's good news how school bus after school bus showed up to give this 95-year-old veteran the surprise of a lifetime. Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
And good evening. We begin tonight with a lot of breaking news, and we start with one of the most well-known members of Congress and a rising star in the Democratic Party, now saying he plans to resign. Congressman Eric Swalwell moments ago announcing that in the face of sexual assault allegations, he's going to resign. The congressman writing that he'll take responsibility and ownership for certain mistakes, but saying he'll fight other allegations. The latest follows Swalwell abandoning his bid to become California's governor on Sunday as calls grew louder for him to leave Congress too from his constituents, his staff, and many of his fellow Democrats. And even as his leaving Congress shuts down a House ethics investigation, a criminal investigation is now underway in New York. And we have more breaking news just in. Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez also announcing his resignation moments ago amid allegations of an inappropriate relationship. NBC's Ryan Nobles is following this for us from Capitol Hill.
Tonight, facing the threat of a pending House Ethics Committee investigation and expulsion, embattled Congressman Eric Swalwell says he will leave office, answering the call from a wide swath of both Republicans and Democrats urging him to step down following allegations of sexual assault and misconduct. Swalwell continuing to deny many of the allegations, calling them false, but adding, "I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make." The California Democrat also made note of the plans to potentially kick him out of office. Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong, Swalwell said in a statement, but adding he knew it was time for him to go. It's also wrong for constituents to have me distracted from duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. Swalwell was a leading candidate for governor of California.
The next governor has to be a fighter protector for all Californians.
But suspended his campaign in response to the backlash. His resignation will end the threat of a congressional probe, but he is still facing the possibility of a criminal investigation in New York, where one of the alleged incidents took place. Multiple women have accused Swalwell of sexual misconduct and assault. One woman telling the San Francisco Chronicle that she had several sexual encounters with the congressman while working in his office. She also accused him of sexually assaulting her twice while she was too intoxicated to consent. NBC News has not verified her allegations, but it confirmed her identity and that she worked for Swalwell from 2019 until 2021. This accuser sharing her story with CNN.
He said to me, "You're right. It's probably not good for a congressman to be caught with his pants down."
All right, Ryan Nobles joins us now live from Capitol Hill. And Ryan, we just got word another congressman facing serious allegations is also resigning tonight.
Yeah, that's the Republican Tony Gonzalez of Texas. He was accused of having an affair with a staffer who later took her own life. He, too, was facing an ethics probe and possible expulsion. The fact that now Gonzalez, a Republican, and Swalwell, a Democrat, have both decided to leave office means that those tight margins in the House of Representatives will not change. Tom.
All right, Ryan Noble leading us off with that breaking news tonight. Ryan, thank you. Now to the growing feud between President Trump and the first American Pope. Tonight, the president is being called out for an AI-generated image he posted, then deleted, depicting him as a Christ-like figure. Here's Gabe Gutierrez.
Tonight, President Trump is defending his social media post of this AI-generated image that depicts him as Jesus Christ.
I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support.
Still, the post has been taken down. The White House has not said why. The Archbishop of Miami telling us.
I think the president is trying to walk it back and trying to put a different spin on it, which I think is a recognition on his part that he probably overstepped or went too far.
There was even swift backlash online from some of the president's MAGA coalition, who wrote, "God shall not be mocked," and there is no context where this is acceptable. The president today holding a photo op with a delivery driver who brought McDonald's to the White House to tout his no tax on tips policy. But he was also pressed about the controversial image.
It's supposed to be me as a doctor making people better.
It all comes amid an escalating feud between the White House and the Vatican. Last week, Pope Leo with this rare call to action over the Iran war.
Contact the authorities, political leaders, congressmen, to ask them, tell them to work for peace and to reject war.
The president overnight posting, Pope Leo was terrible for foreign policy.
And I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person.
The pontiff then responding to a question from NBC's Claudio Lavanga aboard the papal plane.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. And that's what I believe I am called to do.
Bishop Robert Barron, a Catholic and a member of President Trump's Religious Liberty Commission, posting he thinks the president owes the Pope an apology.
There's nothing to apologize for. He's wrong.
And with that, Gabe Gutierrez joins us tonight from the White House. And Gabe, late today, Vice President J.D. Vance weighed in on why the president took the post down.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. The vice president saying a short time ago in an interview that he thought the president was posting a joke and that he took it down because he recognized that a lot of people were not understanding his humor. Tom.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez with that update. Gabe, thank you. The president also today ordering a partial blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, blocking any ships heading to or from Iran. And after those peace talks fell apart this weekend, he now says there's new talk of a potential deal. Here's Richard Engel.
Thousands of pro-government demonstrators rallied in Tehran tonight to denounce President Trump's partial blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran calls the move an act of piracy. This is what Iranians are angry about. The U.S. military has an armada of warships with thousands of troops on board positioned just outside the Strait of Hormuz, ready to strike any vessel attempting to dock at or depart from the Iranian mainland. The strategy in Hormuz, a vital artery for about 20% of the world's oil, appears similar to the one Trump has used against alleged drug traffickers from Venezuela and Colombia. The U.S. military destroying their boats without warning. According to U.S. Central Command, the blockade in Hormuz only applies to Iranian ships and those loading and unloading in Iran. The goal is to pressure Iran and stop it from exporting oil, its main export, much of it going to Asia. And so far, it appears to be working. A marine tracking website showed the strait today effectively empty, with at least 2 ships approaching Hormuz and then seeming to think the better of it, making sharp U-turns.
Right now we have a blockade. They're doing no business.
President Trump imposed the partial blockade after peace talks with Iran, led by Vice President Vance, ended without a deal this weekend. When the partial blockade went into effect at 10 this morning, oil prices jumped and the U.S. stock market dropped. But markets rallied after President Trump suggested a new round of negotiations with Iran may be coming.
We've been called this morning by the right people, the appropriate people, and they want to work a deal.
U.S. intelligence suggests that China could soon provide Iran with new air defense systems. The partial blockade President Trump imposed today directly impacts China, which normally buys a lot of Iranian oil. President Trump is scheduled to visit China next month. Tom?
Richard Engel for us, and there's more breaking news now about an attack on the home of one of the biggest names in tech, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. We have new images of the suspect throwing a Molotov cocktail at Altman's home. Morgan Chesky with the images in the story tonight.
Tonight, authorities say these surveillance images capture suspect Daniel Moreno Gama. Clutching a flaming Molotov cocktail, he's accused of hurling at the California home of OpenAI CEO Sam Altman.
This was not spontaneous. This was planned, targeted, and extremely serious.
Federal agents raiding a home outside Houston early this morning where the FBI says Moreno Gama lived. He's now charged with attempted murder and possession of a deadly weapon. Authorities say the 20-year-old traveled from Texas to California and launched his attack on Altman's residence around 3:37 a.m. last Friday, catching a driveway gate on fire. The criminal complaint going further, sharing he then traveled to OpenAI's San Francisco headquarters where around 5 a.m., Moreno Gama retrieved a chair and used it to strike the glass doors, and according to security personnel on site, stated he was there to burn it down and kill anyone inside. Altman, the head of one of the world's most influential artificial intelligence companies, posted this image of his family, stating he hopes it might dissuade the next person from throwing a Molotov cocktail at our house, no matter what they think about me. Police arresting the suspect at OpenAI's headquarters, where investigators say he had a multi-page document espousing views that opposed artificial intelligence, as well as multiple executives at AI companies. Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
And in the Bahamas tonight, a looming deadline for an American man in custody after his wife disappeared at sea. The clock is ticking for Brian Hooker to be charged or walk free. Jesse Kirsch is at the police station with the latest.
Days of questioning in the Bahamas coming down to a critical decision by police.
If Brian Hooker has not been charged by 7:20 p.m., what happens next?
Then he must be released.
Brian Hooker's attorney telling us investigators questioned him again today about the night he says his wife Lynette fell from their dinghy.
He was released.
Yes.
Could he leave the country, or would he automatically have to stay?
He could leave as long as they have not told him that he has to remain in the country. But at this point in time, the fact that he's concerned about his wife, I doubt he would want to leave.
Authorities have been searching for Lynette Hooker for over a week. Meanwhile, newly revealed text messages shared by fellow boater Marnie Stevenson and obtained by CBS News now appearing to shed light on the Hookers' marriage. Lynette texting Stevenson in 2024, "We decided to call it quits. I'm not going back." Later writing of their life on the water, "It was real bad. I can't be out there with him." And Stevenson's husband Blaine telling NBC News Brian Hooker sent him these maps after Lynette vanished. The maps appear to trace the Hookers' boat ride. Here's the alleged spot where Brian told investigators Lynette went overboard. And here's where Brian paddled next. Brian Hooker's attorney says she cannot confirm the map's authenticity. The Marsh Harbor Boatyard says a security camera spotted Brian Hooker's silhouette around 3:47 a.m. Easter Sunday. That timeline matches the initial police report. The Boatyard would not share the video, but says Hooker arrived on foot and called for help.
And Jesse, any moment right now, we could see Brian Hooker possibly walk out of that door behind you?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. Brian Hooker's attorney says if he is not charged within the next 40 minutes or so, he should be walking down those steps behind me. But even in that scenario, his attorney says he could be re-arrested right there on the sidewalk. Tom.
Okay, Jesse, thank you for that. Now to an emergency landing on a street in downtown Phoenix. The pilot dodging cars and street signs to save everyone on board. Here's NBC's Tom Costello.
It happened in downtown Phoenix. A city street turned into a runway as a small plane swooped over cars and people before setting down on the road. The two passengers on board uninjured and crediting the pilot with the safe landing.
He saved our lives, basically. We're a little bit banged up, but we're okay.
The plane, an RC-3 amphibian plane, first built in the 1940s, took off from a nearby private airfield on a leisure ride when passengers say they suddenly experienced engine trouble.
The engine started to make some weird sounds, and the pilot tried to do the normal stuff to check it out. And I noticed some smoke coming through, so I told him, smoke. We shut the engine off because we don't want to have a fire.
Just 2,500 feet off the ground, the pilot had little time to react.
The last moment, he dipped his wing not to hit the street sign over there, which was amazing. Somebody was watching over us.
Avoiding cars, pedestrians, buildings, and poles, the plane crashed into a fire hydrant.
Whoever landed this thing was probably pretty skilled.
It's 100% a miracle. Again, like we said, this is a very busy street. You could tell it's always busy for whatever reason. When he crashed in this little area, all the traffic was away.
A pilot's skill making that miracle a reality. Tom?
All right, Tom Costello, when we return in 60 seconds, the video is terrifying. A man banging on the door viciously, demanding to be let in. How the homeowner confronted him with a shovel. That's next. We're back now with a frightening scene caught on a doorbell cam. A man threatening a homeowner in California, beating on the door and even forcing his way in. Aaron McLaughlin has the video and how the homeowner fought back.
Chilling new Ring camera footage shows the moment a man dressed in black demands to enter a private residence in Fairfield, California.
Open the door now.
In the video, the man, later identified by police as 30-year-old Jason Nichols, asks about the homeowner's daughter.
Where's your daughter, man? What are you talking about?
While claiming to be Harry Dresden, a popular urban fantasy character. You then hear the homeowner, who was away at the time, repeatedly tell Nichols to leave.
Can you leave my house, please? Can you open the door, please? You have nothing to do with my house. Can you leave my house?
Triggering this terrifying reaction. According to a police statement, a woman and child were home when Nichols entered through a separate sliding glass door before the homeowner finally arrives at the residence armed with a shovel.
I don't know who you are.
According to the statement, the altercation turned physical with both sustaining head injuries. It's unclear if Nichols had any connection to the homeowner or his family.
Police department.
Minutes later, police arrest Nichols, now charged with 4 felony counts, including threatening a crime with intent to terrorize. It's unclear if Nichols has legal representation. Aaron McLaughlin, NBC News.
All right, we are back in a moment with the giant jet flying way too low for a small town. Why the pilot reportedly did this. Plus, robots gear up for a half marathon in China. Wait till you see them go. Can these humanoids outrun humans? That's next. We are back now with new charges in the murder of a cheerleader killed on a Carnival cruise ship. The U.S. Attorney's Office charging Anna Kepner's 16-year-old stepbrother with murder and sexual abuse. He's accused of intentionally killing her during a family vacation in November. Her father tells NBC News justice needs to be served. Also, out of Iceland, video capturing this Iceland Air 757. Look at that, flying really low to the ground, just above the streetlights and narrowly passing over homes. Local media reported the pilot was set to retire and made the flyover his hometown. Iceland Air said it did not authorize it and is now investigating. And in China, humanoid robots taking to the streets of Beijing. Look at them go for a test run ahead of the half marathon next week. Several hundred robots are set to race alongside humans, with some robots running on their own and others controlled by remotes. We will see how well they perform against human runners. All right, when we come back tonight here on Nightly News, for 20 years, this veteran has waved at every school bus that passes. Now his neighborhood is coming together to salute him back. There's good news tonight, and it's next. Finally, there's good news tonight. For years, a veteran in Ohio has sat on his porch each morning to wave at a school bus driving by. For his 95th birthday, the community decided it was time to return the favor. This is a moment Air Force veteran Bob Jones will never forget. His Ohio neighborhood coming together to salute him.
Because for 20 years, Bob has spent his mornings on this porch, smiling and waving to every school bus that drives past his home, saluting them at the start of their day.
I wave at the kids and bus drivers, and they wave back. And some of them says, "I love you."
So when Bob's 95th birthday was coming up, his neighbors knew they had to go all out.
My sister drives for a bus, and this is the second or third generation of students that are coming by and that will say hi to him as they go past.
A parade of school buses and cars lining the street.
Oh yeah, this is your present.
Hand-delivered cards and signs to let Bob know exactly what he means to them.
I'm just emotional.
A community grateful for his service and for making them smile every day.
He's just a role model in so many ways for little kids.
And a big happy birthday to Bob. Our thanks to our friends at WLWT in Cincinnati for their help with that story. That's Nightly News for this Monday. I'm Tom Llamas. Thanks so much for watching tonight. And always, we're here for you. Good night. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.